Good afternoon from Mickey and from me from Castle Goring. Well, Mickey, is that a sneeze? I think Mickey might have just sneezed. Well, we will proceed despite Mickey's sneeze. As usual, bedlam. Too much going on. Not enough time, not enough space to cover everything. So, before starting though, there is something I need to correct, which is that I did a boo-boo the last time. I said that Michael Jackson had an overdose of propranolol instead of propofol. Sorry, one is an anesthetic, the other is a beta blocker. I got them confused. I'm awfully sorry. I hope I'm going to be forgiven. Mickey, do you think Matty's going to be forgiven? Mickey hopes that everybody will forgive her Matty. Before starting, I'd also like to say something else. I've been inundated with questions not only about the Martin Bashir interview and the fallout from that and the BBC and the effect it has upon this nation, this nation's national broadcaster, etc., etc., but also about Harry's the me you don't see, the Apple Plus thing that he's doing with Oprah. And I would like to say that up front, so that we're absolutely clear about it and I don't have to revisit this at all, that I basically do agree with his premise that it is more courageous to say that you need help than to pretend that you don't. And I would agree with that. I think anybody who needs help should seek it. And I don't think there's any disgrace in needing help or seeking it. Everybody needs help in some way, shape or form. Whether it is a friend who is trusted, a therapist, whatever. I chose therapy because I was carrying around an unbearable burden of pain that I was not prepared to inflict upon my friends or loved ones. It would have been just unfair. And I think that therapy can be a wonderful thing in the right hands. I also think it is an extremely dangerous thing in the wrong hands. And I am extremely opposed to therapy as entertainment. I think there are some things that are so private and personal that we need to hug them close to ourselves. I will say, the Harry that I have seen in the Oprah, the me you don't see, is like a pig in muck, wallowing in the attention. Wallowing. You can see he's just absolutely thrilled to the core to be the center of attention and to be spilling his guts and to be sharing with the world. I mean, that degree of egotism, I have to tell you, and stupidity, because it's not only egotism, it's stupidity. But it's not stupidity alone, because many stupid people have dignity. Many stupid people are not so egotistical that they actually think that, wow, this is my moment. I'm the center of the world's attention. This is the position I was born to be in. Wallow, wallow, wallow. I think it is an exercise in distastefulness. I think it is really dangerous when anybody turns serious matters into entertainment. There's a heck of a difference between having a sense of humor and trying to lighten a heavy load with humor or with grace or with dignity, and using what you regard as your pain for entertainment and wearing it as a badge of honor. Pain, I'm sorry, is not a desirable except as a warning that something is wrong. And to pretend that it is so desirable that it can be the latest form of entertainment, I think is sick. I think it's seriously sick. And I honestly think it is akin to carnal relations in public. There are some things people just don't do. And violating your privacy to the extent that you are going to partake in a therapy session on television is one of them. Now, I hasten to add to those of you who think, oh, well, it's easy for her to talk because she's never been asked. Well, in fact, I have been asked. I've been asked repeatedly. There are television shows in this country where people are having therapy sessions with doctors. I can't remember the names of them because when I was approached, I said, absolutely not. Are they insane? I mean, the idea that I would violate myself to that extent. It is exhibitionism of the grossest kind. It rarely is. You're taking your most private parts and displaying them for public consumption. Odious to the nth degree. Odious to the nth degree. The Super Albie says, when Diana died, no one said she was hounded by the press for having a relationship with a man of colour. Harry's wife comes onto the scene and there's a new narrative created by that vulture who is profiting from Harry's sad story. Do I agree? Yes, I do agree. I do agree. I did not know Dodi, but I know his stepmother slightly, and she is a lovely, lovely lady. His father, I know, has a very mixed reputation, but he has also, over the years, done a tremendous amount of charity work without ever seeking credit for it. So he definitely has a side that is unsung. Where does colour come into it? Aside from anything else, Linnaeus, Carl Linnaeus, must be spinning in his grave, because insofar as I am aware, and I am definitely in the right in this instance, there are only 3 races. They are categorized scientifically as Caucasian, Negroid, and Mongoloid. They divide up basically into Europeans, not recent immigrants, incidentally, of extraneous extraction, but ethnic Europeans from several centuries ago. Middle Easterners, they are all Caucasian. The word Caucasian comes from the Caucasus. The Caucasus is beside Iran. The average Caucasian is olive-skinned, brown-eyed, and brown-haired. The Nordic races are pale-skinned, blonde-haired, blue-eyed. But the average Caucasian is not Nordic. The average Caucasian is, as I said just a while ago, I don't need to repeat myself. Egyptians, some of them are black, Nubians, for instance, and others, like Mohamed Fayed, you only need to look at his features. He has Caucasian features. Look at his daughter, Camilla. She is the same colour as Diana, Princess of Wales, or at least one of her sisters. Where is all of a sudden Dodi Fayed black? Dodi Fayed was not black. Not only was he not black, they used to say that Dodi was, because he was a Muslim, the conspiracy theorists said that so he had to be bumped off with Diana because they didn't want her marrying a Muslim. However, nobody bumped off Hashnat Khan, and Hashnat Khan is not only a Muslim, but Hashnat Khan is Pakistani. The Pakistanis, the subcontinentals, are by and large Mongoloid. That's the second categorization that we touch upon. So let's call a spade a spade. How dare they bring race into it? The only person who has brought race into it is Harry. Harry has brought race into it because Meghan and he are obsessed with using the race card for their enrichment and their self-aggrandizement and to turn themselves into something more relevant than they are. Well, I think we have many times already covered the fact that Meghan has gone to very great trouble and expense to erase every bit of her African heritage. So she doesn't look at all African. She could be anything that is white. She doesn't look like a woman of color. When she was a little girl, she would like you to believe, she says, that one of her teachers recommended, because she was perplexed what color to put down, and her father told her to create her own box. All, I mean, sounds like a real fantasy to me, because according to Meghan, her teacher said that she should put down Caucasian. Sorry, Meghan, fools may be buying that line. I'm not buying it for a second. I don't believe for 1 second that any teacher of yours told you to put down Caucasian. When you were a little girl, you looked very mixed race with your very African hair and your very African nose. You did not look Caucasian. I think that is an invention of yours, and I personally think that that goes to the core of your chip on your shoulder about your color, because I think that you suffer from a serious case of shame from when you were young about the fact that you were not Caucasian, and you have gone to great lengths to Caucasianize yourself. So this whole colour thing is supremely distasteful and really negative. Cindy Rogers says, and Harry is saying that people didn't like the fact that she was not with a white man. History is repeating itself like Meghan is biracial. They won't stop till she is dead. Being racist is the story as Harry and Meghan not see it as they are always the victims? Well, I mean, you need to remember that Harry is a deeply disturbed person, and he's none too bright. And, you know, he has these phrases that he comes out with, like, I mean, I think really somebody could write a play about Harry and Meghan and update it, sort of, you know, not the Moor of Venice, but the dolt of Windsor. I mean, really, you know, because, I mean, dropping the poison in his ear, drop, drop, drop. And out he trots with these things and then says, oh, it's all been revealed to me by my wife. I didn't realize it before. Now I do. He doesn't realize what he's saying. He really doesn't understand that people who have any discernment of when they hear what he says, they think, my gosh, this man is telling us that he has been brainwashed. That's what he's telling us. To many people, and certainly to me, because, I mean, where do they get off with nonsense, absolute nonsense about race? I mean, it's so offensive, you know. So yes, Meghan is biracial. She is most likely about 30% African origin and 70% Caucasian origin. Well, what about her 70%? Or am I being racist because I am saying that 70% is greater than 30% in terms of arithmetic, and therefore she's less African than she is Caucasian. So give us a break, Meghan and Harry, with all of this racist nonsense, because it's really deeply offensive. And Binky Breakspear says, can you tell me whether Mohamed Al Fayed regards himself as black? I can tell you he definitely doesn't. He doesn't. He regards himself as Egyptian, and he is not a black Egyptian. Uncomplicated says, Lady C, do you think that Has and his wife are turning the royal family into their own personal reality show? It's really all they have to sell. Suicide scenario, 4 exclamation marks. Yes, I do think they're turning the royal family into their own reality show. You know, when Meghan first landed on these shores before she met Harry, she befriended people and wanted, wait for it, to become a cast member of Made in Chelsea. Made in Chelsea is a British upmarket show about Chelsea young people who lead privileged lives. So Meghan was doing the equivalent, or trying to do the equivalent, of what she did when she went to Northwestern University. She didn't identify as a woman of colour. She identified as white, and the proof of the pudding is in the eating. She joined the whitest of the white sororities. She could have joined a sorority of colour. She didn't. She didn't. She didn't. And yes, they are turning the royal family, well, their branch of it, because I don't think that the rest of the royal family is allowing them to turn them into the farcicalities that Meghan and Harry have turned themselves into. You know, look at me, look at me. I'm so in pain. I'm so in pain. I suffer so greatly. I suffer so greatly. I'm a prince. I'm a prince. And, look at me. Look at me. Look at me. I'm a proud, confident woman of colour. And I'm a duchess and I'm royal. And I suffer so greatly. I suffer so greatly. Much more than all those African people around me who are just having to eke out a daily living and go and fetch water for 5 miles and worry about their daily survival, while I have to worry about my feelings. God, you couldn't make it up. I mean, you talk about the Truman Show. The Harry and Meghan show is a far greater farce than the Truman Show or any other form of entertainment is, because truth is stranger than fiction, and they are the strangest things that we have at the moment on the international stage. Kitty Walt says, question for Lady C. Lady C, what do you think of the parallels being drawn between similarities of Martin Bashir's interview with Diana and how he's obtained it, and Oprah's interview and now Apple documentary with Harry and his wife, and Oprah being rightfully called the new Martin Bashir? Well, that's a laurel, isn't it? In collaboration with his wife in order to achieve their own goals, which are multifold. Money, stir more racial prejudice in royal family agenda, and so on. Given that Oprah is a billionaire, hence very influential and also popular with a lot of people around the world, also CBS, which enabled and distributed that damning interview, do you think there'll ever come a time when Oprah and Harry's wife will pay for what they've done so far and continue to do to the royal family UK, and how obviously Harry is being exploited through his own stupidity and selfishness? When will come the time of reckoning for Harry, his wife, Oprah and co., also known as CBS and others involved in this? Also, I wonder if Netflix's Crown will reflect the findings from the Dyson report, or will they continue to blame the royal family for everything? Well, of course they're going to continue to blame the royal family for everything, Kitty. The royal family's to blame for everything. Of course the royal family's to blame for everything. You know, the fact that it's going to rain day after tomorrow in Abu Dhabi is definitely the royal family's fault. Don't ask me. Don't take my word for it. Ask Harry and Meghan. They'll tell you. God, you couldn't make it up. I think that Martin Bashir, in fairness to Oprah, lied, cheated, deceived, and not with charm only, but he fabricated documents, he uttered forgeries. Oprah has not done any of that. My understanding also is that although Oprah was very willing, and Oprah was delighted to have the opportunity of interviewing Harry and Meghan, that the initial, don't you think this would be a good idea, didn't come from Oprah. That's right, it didn't come from Oprah, it came from the hustler, the one who's hustling and making a lot of money. So, you know, let's give Oprah her due. She didn't need to con anybody. And I don't think Oprah did con anybody. I think, well, let me put it another way. I don't think Oprah conned Harry and Meghan. I think Oprah conned the public by not asking the professional questions and not exercising the level of scrutiny that any reputable, responsible interviewer is obliged at all times to undertake. She never did any of that. She abnegated responsibility entirely. And there is obviously another agenda going along, which is they are partners, maybe not exactly in crime, but they're definitely partners in hoodwinking and promoting dubious agendas and, in my opinion, pretty dodgy stuff. It's certainly not anything that would stand up to scrutiny, and it's certainly nothing that is balanced or impartial. It's all about fame and fortune. Fame and fortune for Harry, for Meghan, for Oprah. Fame and fortune. They worship at the altar of Mammon. Oprah, whatever her failings, is not in the same category as Martin Bashir. He's in the lowest rung of Hades. She, I think, is a cut or two above him. Maybe not many cuts above, but she's definitely above him. Gloria Ridley says, not much difference between Bashir and Oprah Winfrey. Not much difference between Harry's paranoia and Diana's paranoia. Well, Gloria Ridley, having established that there is some difference between Bashir and Oprah Winfrey, I will tackle your comment about the fact that there's not much difference between Harry's paranoia and Diana's paranoia. No, there isn't. Diana's head was turned by Martin Bashir. Diana was already paranoid, as I stated in my book, The Real Diana. I mean, I had a lot of sympathy for Diana. I had a lot of affection, believe it or not, for many parts of Diana's personality. Diana was very disturbed. She was definitely paranoid. She was definitely mentally ill. And she was definitely someone who had a serious personality disorder. She had borderline personality disorder, which is very difficult to cope with. And I have a great deal of sympathy for anybody who suffers from it, because it really is very difficult to manage. Diana was not a narcissist. Diana's issues were completely different. I'm not saying she didn't have narcissistic aspects to her personality. Most people do if they're healthy, because narcissism in small doses is positive. It's only in large doses that it becomes very destructive. But Diana's problems were basically about abandonment and the fact that she was forever on a sort of up and down, which is very characteristic of borderline personality disorder and is not characteristic to the same extent of narcissistic personality disorder. Narcissists are far more stable emotionally than borderline personalities. So let's be clear about that. But she definitely had problems. Harry has problems. Harry's always had problems. Harry is his mother's son. Harry's always been paranoid. Harry has had Meghan, Iago-like, dropping enlightenment in his ear, which, when I hear what he says, I call it poison. He calls it enlightenment. But he regards it as enlightenment. I regard it as poison. I know many people who know Harry very well would agree with me, but we need to give credit where it's due. He regards it as enlightenment, and she certainly regards it as enlightenment. Of course, the enlightenment that's going to take her to the billionaire status that she hungers for, and ever-increasing fame which she is achieving. So there's not much difference at this point between Harry's paranoia having been heightened by Meghan's enlightenment and Martin Bashir's destruction of Diana's interests to a large extent by heightening her paranoia. Susan Spencer. Bashir did the same to footballer George Best. His wife's account of Bashir's deception is truly wicked and shameful. Yes, Alex Best has complained about the fact that Martin Bashir, or as George Best started to call him, Martin Bashir, bashing his ears, because Martin Bashir evidently stalked them and used to go and see them practically every day over a series of weeks. I mean, he stalked them and wore them down and used the Diana interview as his calling card to gain George Best's trust, and to gain his wife's trust, and to gain his best friend's trust. According to Alex Best, he plied them with alcohol over a period of time, then spun around and said that they were heavy drinkers, and so that George Best was actually suffering from their presence, because George Best, to the Americans who do not know who George Best is, George Best was one of the top soccer players of the 20th century. He was a huge star, and he was an alcoholic, and he actually even had a liver transplant. And Martin Bashir wangled his way in, because Martin Bashir is a leech and a vulture, and he can sue me if he thinks that I'm defaming him. I'll stand by it and I'll prove it in a court of law. Martin Bashir is a leech and a vulture, and Martin Bashir is a confidence trickster who works his way into people's affections by effectively gaslighting them. He's a confidence trickster. He gains their confidence, and then, having got what he wants, he destroys their interests. He did it with George Best. He did it with Michael Jackson. And as David Therton says, I see that, and we'll come to who he now else he did it to. I see that football legend and former England football manager Terry Venables now wants the BBC to explain how they fabricated evidence against him in 2 Panorama programmes, which Martin Bashir was involved with, that resulted in him issuing writs for libel against them in the 1990s. What are your thoughts on this? Well, I have to tell you, this is very coincidental, because in 1995, Terry Venables and I shared Court 13 in the Royal Courts of Justice, which is the libel court, because I was suing Associated Newspapers for libel, and he was suing the BBC. And our hearings took place on the same day. And when he wasn't in that court, I was in that court, and we shared the court. Well, ultimately, because Terry Venables said that the evidence that they were using to prove their case had been fabricated, but because it was the BBC and beyond suspicion, ultimately he had to withdraw. He stood his costs and the BBC stood their costs, which shows that the BBC knew that they had something to hide, because if they hadn't had anything to hide, they would have got their costs. But Terry Venables was in the position of accusing a national institution that was renowned for its probity, integrity, and scrupulousness of unscrupulous behavior, of actually fraud, of fabricating documents. But since he couldn't prove it, but now he can. So I think we might see that case being reopened. I think all the chickens seem to be coming home to roost. So now I think we can lighten the mood a bit, shall we? Robin Lewis says, so now just Harry is claiming that Archie's first words were Mama, Papa, and Grandma Diana. Laugh out loud, really, Harry. That just doesn't happen. Oh, gosh, you couldn't make this up, could you? I mean, this is entertainment. Come on, guys. You have to admit, this is entertainment. I mean, when Harry gave that interview on the bus to James Corden, he said that Archie's first word was crocodile, which I thought was being very modest, because I'm sure that what Harry really meant the first word was anti-disestablishmentarianism. Now he has a new first word. So we've got it out of the horse's mouth. That donkey doesn't even know how to count. He knows how to bray, but he doesn't know how to count. Because how many first words does that child have? I can believe Mama at a stretch, but I don't. Most children's first words are Papa or Dada, because the P and the D are easier to pronounce than the M. But Grandma Diana, why would the child be speaking about Grandma Diana when he has Grandpa Charles and Step Granny Camilla? Why is the child not speaking about Grandma Doria or Grandpa Thomas? Excuse me, Grandma Diana. She's been dead for nearly 25 years. It's a pretty schoolish thing, don't you think? To be having a baby being so indoctrinated about a dead grandparent that its first words are of the name of that grandparent, not the name of the living grandmother, the name of the dead grandmother. You know, Harry and Meghan don't seem to understand that when they say things like this, They think they're painting a picture and coming across as being special, and they're manipulating us and directing us in the direction they want us to go. And for them to effectively school us into having the perceptions they require us to have. It's called brainwashing. But in fact, what they're doing is showing up that they're really idiots. They're really idiotic. I mean, I can't believe, who ever heard of such rubbish? Gabriella Simon says, does Harry's behaviour and his constant lamenting help anybody in this world? I doubt that. What is his goal? Doesn't he realise that people notice that there are contradictions in his interviews and untruths revealed? We, the people, are not stupid. No, you're absolutely right, my dear Gabriella Simon. We, the people, are not stupid, but he thinks we are. I've never met a fool who didn't think that he was smarter than he was. I've never met an egotist who didn't think that he or she was smarter than he or she was. I've never met a narcissist who didn't have contempt for everybody's brains but their own, and who thought they could dupe everybody. Lucy Mangan has a very interesting review in The Guardian. Now, The Guardian is the Bible of the left wing in this country. And even the left wing are beginning to lose sympathy for Harry and Meghan. Her review of Apple Plus's The Me You Can't See she gives it 2 stars. And she says, I have been knocking back the antiemetic medication since the trailer dropped, and the series itself is as cloying as expected. She also makes the point that the only person, including Lady Gaga, who gets Oprah is Prince Harry. Everybody else has to do with a discombobulated interview straight to camera. Merching. The whole thing is about merching. Now, I would actually like to close on a rather entertaining note, because Harry has treated us to the most bizarre scenario that is truly comedic. I mean, it's not really funny, but you have to laugh. It's really rather sad, but if you're not going to tear out your hair and scream with frustration, you better laugh. Harry confesses to the world, unburdens himself about his and Meghan's pain, the pain of privilege. It's so stupendous. And he then, completely forgetting that they have previously said, or that Meghan has previously said, that she was suicidal the day of the Royal Festival Hall show. And she struggled to put on her makeup, notwithstanding the fact that she had a makeup artist there. But she bravely overcame her suicidal feelings. And I'm mocking it, and I'm telling you I'm mocking it. because I was suicidal when I was younger, growing up. And I know people who've committed suicide, and I don't think any of this is funny. I think it's an absolute outrage that Meghan Markle can be pressing Harry's buttons and that dolt is spilling forth sputum, because that's what it is, at the expense of people who are genuinely suffering and who are genuinely suicidal. Nobody who is suicidal, Harry, you don't, behaves the way she did. You have been conned. You have been conned. And I am outraged on your behalf. And I'm also outraged on my behalf and the behalf of everybody who has ever been suicidal, that your wife could be playing the suicide card in the Diana Mach 2 impersonation. Oh, Diana did it. Let me see how I can come up with. What can I do to emulate what Diana... Another Diana card. That's going to keep the dolt right where I want him. Because that is what the message is that you're giving us, Harry. And that's the message that Meghan is giving us when you share all of this pain. Because it's really not... It may be painful for you, but I can tell you it's really painful for us to listen to, because it is outrageous that this woman can actually be spewing forth such ridiculous nonsense, and that you then spew it forth in another scenario and don't even get the timing right. The timing is all wrong. I mean, what the heck is wrong with the two of you? You can't even get your stories straight. So you have it in this show where you are busy spilling your guts for however $1 million, notwithstanding the fact that people who genuinely suffer and genuinely need therapy need to understand that there are no quick and easy fixes, and that it's not entertainment, and how dare you turn it into entertainment. So what do you see? You see that on the way to the on the way to the Albert Hall, and if I said Festival Hall earlier, which I might have, I'm sorry, I meant the Albert Hall. On the way to the Albert Hall, she's telling you how she intends to commit suicide and does it in great detail, and then spins around and says to you, you stupid idiot, how could you believe it? Oh, but I won't, because I'm not going to do to you, and you can't, another woman can't leave you. I mean, you talk about offensive. Can you seriously believe that anybody in their right mind would buy a crock of rubbish like that? But you do? I mean, what planet are you on? It is outrageous that you people are playing with not only each other's heads, but you're sharing this putrid, sick, disgusting scenario with the rest of the world. I'm sorry. It is an outrage. It is an absolute outrage. You can't even get your timelines straight. And that she was busy crying. You idiot! She might have been whimpering, but she wasn't crying. The photographs show she wasn't crying. She had no tears. Her makeup didn't run. Stop being such an idiot. Well, I suppose you can't help it, because you are just an idiot. But I mean, honestly, don't make your millions and this crock of feces honestly, really, quite frankly, I wish the both of you would just retire from public life. Retire from public life. Learn the virtues of silence, dignity, and grace. Then, if you can possibly have a second coming, come a second time. But between now and then, I really do wish the both of you would just shut up and leave us alone, because this is beyond a joke. This is truly offensive, that you would seek to use and believe it, and you are so dumb to believe it. This is truly offensive, that you would seek to use a scenario that doesn't add up, and you're too dumb to figure out it doesn't add up. Well, we're not too dumb. We've figured out it doesn't add up. The timeline is all wrong, and so is the behavior. When people want to commit suicide, they do not tell their husbands, but I love you so much, I'm not going to. However, this is what I would do if I didn't love you so much. You vain goat. What a vain goat you are. You really are dumb. You believe that load of rubbish? Christ. Honestly, it's just disgusting. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. As you can see, I take to heart very deeply when people are manipulating others with such serious matters. I think it is odious in the extreme. Anyway, enough said. If you have enjoyed this, that's maybe not the right word today, but anyway, if you have agreed with this, enjoyed it, liked it, benefited from it, profited from it, whatever word you want to use, I'm sorry. I can't think of which one to use right now. I'm too upset. Please like, subscribe, press the notification bell, and share. Thank you very much. Goodbye.